I'll never forget the look on my daughter's face when she said those words. I was standing in the kitchen. My kitchen, the one I'd cooked in for 43 years, holding a dish towel, and she looked at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. "You're not family anymore, Mother. Get out." The roast chicken was still warm on the table. I'd spent 3 hours that Sunday morning preparing it the way Courtney had loved it as a child. Crispy skin, herbs from the garden, those little roasted potatoes she used to sneak off the pan before dinner. I'd set the table with my good china, the set my husband Gerald and I had received as a wedding gift 50 years ago. There were 4 places. One for me, one for Courtney, one for her husband Trevor, and one for their daughter Olivia, my precious granddaughter. I had made Sunday dinner every week for the past 8 months, ever since Courtney and Trevor had temporarily moved into my house after Trevor lost his job at the tech company. Every Sunday, I cooked. Every Sunday, I cleaned up alone while they watched television in the living room. But this Sunday was different. "Did you hear me?" Courtney's voice was sharp, cutting through the silence. She was standing now, her hands on her hips. At 39 years old, my daughter had become someone I barely recognized. "Pack your things. Trevor and I have decided that this house is too much for you to maintain anyway. You should be in a home. We're doing you a favor, really." Trevor sat beside her, silent but smirking. He'd always been the poison in her ear, but I'd bitten my tongue. I'd wanted to keep my family together, wanted to be close to Olivia. The 14-year-old was staring at her phone, pretending not to hear any of this, but I could see her hands shaking. "This is my house, Courtney." My voice was steady, though my heart was pounding. "Your father and I bought this house in 1982. I've lived here for 43 years. "Yeah, well, Dad's dead, isn't he?" Trevor finally spoke, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "And you're just taking up space. An old woman living alone in a 4-bedroom house? It's selfish, really. We have a family to raise." I looked at my daughter, searching for any sign of the little girl I'd raised, the one who used to climb into my lap when she had nightmares, who'd called me her best friend on her 16th birthday. "Courtney, honey, don't honey me." She slammed her hand on the table, rattling the good china. "You've had your life, a nice long one. Now it's our turn. Trevor's consulting business needs office space, and Olivia needs a bigger room. You can take the apartment over the garage, if you're lucky. But this main house, it's ours now." "I pay the mortgage on this house," I said quietly. "I pay the utilities. I pay for the groceries that fill your refrigerator." "Oh, please." Courtney rolled her eyes in a gesture so teenage, so unlike the mature woman she was supposed to be. "You're living off Dad's pension and Social Security. That's our inheritance you're wasting. Every month you keep breathing is money that should be ours." The words hung in the air like smoke. Every month you keep breathing. My own daughter had just told me she was waiting for me to die. I looked down at the chicken I'd cooked with such care, at the table I'd set with such hope. I thought about the $73,000 I'd spent over the past 8 months, money from my savings, to support them while Trevor looked for work. I thought about the jewelry that had mysteriously gone missing from my bedroom. I thought about the legal documents I'd found in Trevor's office last week, the ones with my forged signature transferring the house deed. But they didn't know that I'd found those documents. They didn't know that I'd made copies. They didn't know about the phone calls I'd been making, the lawyer I'd been meeting with, the bank accounts I'd been protecting. They didn't know that this 73-year-old woman, this burden they wanted to discard, had one more card to play. I carefully folded my dish towel and set it on the counter. Then I looked my daughter straight in the eye and said, "You're right about one thing, Courtney. This conversation is over." I walked out of that kitchen, climbed the stairs to my bedroom, and closed the door. Through the walls, I could hear Trevor laughing, hear Courtney saying something about finally teaching the old bat her place. What they didn't know was that I had already been planning. They didn't know that this 73-year-old woman had just been waiting for them to show their true colors one more time. They didn't know that by tomorrow morning their whole world was going to change. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how I got to that Sunday dinner, to understand what happened next, I need to take you back 2 months earlier. It was a Tuesday morning in late July when Courtney first called me about moving in. I was on my morning walk through Riverside Park, something I'd done every day for the past 10 years, rain or shine. At 73, I was in better shape than most people half my age. No cane, no walker, just my comfortable sneakers and my determination to stay active. My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Hi, sweetheart," I answered, slightly out of breath from the hill. "Mom?" Courtney's voice was tight, stressed. "We need to talk. Can I come over this morning?" "Of course, I'll put coffee on. Is everything okay?" There was a pause. We'll talk when I get there." An hour later, Courtney was sitting at my kitchen table, stirring sugar into her coffee with sharp, aggressive movements. Trevor wasn't with her. He rarely was when she needed something from me. "Trevor lost his job," she announced without preamble. "They're downsizing the entire department. His severance will cover maybe 3 months, and our rent is $3,200 a month. We can't afford it, Mom." I felt a familiar tightening in my chest. The same feeling I'd had so many times over the years whenever Courtney had a crisis. "I'm so sorry, honey. What can I do to help?" "We need to move in here, just temporarily." She said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. "You have all this space, and we're drowning in expenses. Olivia's private school tuition is $22,000 a year, and with Trevor out of work..." She trailed off, looking around my kitchen with an appraising eye that made me uncomfortable. "Well, of course you can stay here while you get back on your feet," I heard myself saying, even as a small voice in my head whispered, "Be careful." "How long are you thinking?" "Just a few months. Trevor's already got leads on new positions. 6 months, tops." That was 2 months ago. Trevor's leads never materialized. Instead, he spent his days in my late husband's study, the door closed, supposedly networking and building his consulting business. But I noticed things. The expensive lunches he ordered through DoorDash, charged to a credit card I later realized was in my name. The golf club membership he renewed. The new car he leased, somehow using my address on the application. At first I tried to be understanding. Gerald and I had raised Courtney to be independent, but times were hard and families help each other. That's what I told myself while I cooked their meals and cleaned their bathroom and watched my grocery bills triple. But then the little disrespects started adding up. One morning, about 3 weeks after they'd moved in, I came downstairs to find Courtney rearranging my living room. Gerald's favorite chair, the leather recliner where he'd spent countless evenings reading and where I sometimes still sat to feel close to him, was pushed into a corner. "What are you doing?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "This room has such bad feng shui, Mom. And honestly, this furniture is so dated. Trevor and I were thinking we could go to IKEA this weekend, maybe get some modern pieces. Don't worry, we'll help you pay for it." They never did, of course. The $2,400 worth of new furniture went on my credit card, which I discovered when I checked my statement 2 weeks later. I started noticing other things, too. My pearl earrings, the ones Gerald gave me for our 30th anniversary, disappeared from my jewelry box. When I asked Courtney about them, she looked at me with concern. "Mom, are you sure you didn't misplace them? You know, at your age, memory issues are common. Maybe you should see a doctor." I hadn't misplaced them. I knew exactly where I'd put them. But I said nothing, just made a mental note and watched more carefully. My morning walks became my sanctuary. That's where I could think clearly, away from the tension in my own home. That's where I ran into Barbara Morrison, an old friend from my book club who I hadn't seen in months. "Eleanor," she waved from a bench near the fountain, "where have you been hiding?" I sat down beside her, grateful for a friendly face. "Family stuff," I said vaguely. Barbara studied me with the shrewd eyes of someone who'd lived 75 years and seen it all. "The daughter?" I nodded. "She and her husband moved in, temporarily." I emphasized the word with just enough irony that Barbara caught it. "Oh, honey," she patted my hand. "How bad is it?" And there, On that bench in the early morning sunshine, I told her everything. The money, the missing jewelry, the small cruelties, the way they'd taken over my house and my life. Barbara listened without interrupting. When I finished, she pulled out her phone. "Eleanor, I'm adding you to a WhatsApp group. It's just us, me, Linda Kowalski, Ruth Anderson, and Diane Foster. We call ourselves the Silver Survivors." Silver Survivors? We're all dealing with ungrateful adult children in one way or another. Linda's son tried to have her declared incompetent so he could control her finances. Ruth's daughter stole $80,000 from her before Ruth caught on. Diane's twins tried to force her into assisted living so they could sell her condo. We share information, support each other, and most importantly, she looked at me seriously, we help each other protect ourselves. That afternoon, I found myself in a video call with 4 women I barely knew, all of us over 70, all of us sharp as tacks despite what our children might think. "First thing," Linda said, her silver hair gleaming in her webcam light, "check your credit report, right now. I'll send you the link." I did. What I found made my blood run cold. 3 credit cards I'd never applied for, all in my name. Total balance, $47,000. A car lease, a line of credit. "Trevor," I whispered. "Now you document everything," Ruth said firmly. She was a retired accountant, and her organizational skills were legendary. Every expense, every conversation, every time something goes missing. Get a composition notebook, write it all down with dates and times. This isn't just family drama anymore, Eleanor. This is financial exploitation of an elderly person. It's a crime. That night, I started my notebook. I wrote down every penny I'd spent on Courtney and Trevor since they'd moved in. The groceries, $2,800. The new furniture, $2,400. The credit card bills I'd paid without realizing they were fraudulent, $12,000 so far. The loan Courtney had asked for 2 weeks ago to cover Olivia's school tuition, $11,000. The property taxes on the house that I'd paid in full instead of in installments, because Trevor said it would help his credit to show my financial responsibility, $8,200. I'd spent $73,000 in 2 months. On my fixed income, Gerald's pension of $3,400 a month and my Social Security of $1,900, that was more than a year's worth of money. The next morning, I made an appointment with a lawyer, not the family lawyer who'd handled Gerald's estate because I'd seen his business card on Trevor's desk. A new lawyer, one Ruth recommended. Her name was Patricia Valdez, and she specialized in elder, law, and financial abuse. "Mrs. Walsh," she said when I sat down in her office the following week, my notebook clutched in my hands. "Tell me everything." I did. I showed her the credit card statements, the forged applications, the documentation I'd been keeping. I told her about the missing jewelry, the way they'd taken over my house, the comments about how I should be in a home. Patricia listened, taking notes, her expression growing more serious by the minute. When I finished, she sat back in her chair. "You're in a vulnerable position," she said bluntly. "Your daughter has established residency in your home. Your son-in-law has been committing identity theft and financial exploitation. If they've been forging your signature on documents, that's also fraud. But here's what concerns me most. Have you seen any paperwork regarding the house itself?" I shook my head. "I want you to go home and search. Look for anything related to the property deed, power of attorney documents, anything legal with your name on it. Can you do that?" "They're always home," I said. "They never leave together." "Then create an opportunity. Can you get your daughter out of the house for a few hours?" That Saturday, I told Courtney I wanted to take Olivia school shopping, just the 2 of us, grandmother and granddaughter. To my surprise, Courtney agreed immediately. "That would be great, Mom. Trevor and I could use some alone time anyway." Alone time to go through my things, I thought, but didn't say. Olivia and I spent 3 hours at the mall. She was a sweet girl, caught between childhood and adolescence, and I could see she was troubled by the tension at home. "Grandma," she asked while we were having smoothies, "why don't Mom and Dad like you anymore?" The question pierced my heart. What makes you think that, sweetheart? I hear them talking. Dad says you're... She hesitated, looking uncomfortable. He uses bad words about you, and Mom just laughs. It makes me sad. I reached across the table and took her hand. Olivia, I want you to remember something. No matter what happens between your mom and me, no matter what you hear, I love you. And if you ever need anything at all, you call me, even if they tell you not to. Okay? She nodded, tears in her eyes. Okay, Grandma. When I got home, loaded down with shopping bags that I'd paid for with my rapidly depleting savings, Trevor and Courtney were in high spirits. Too high. Suspiciously high. Have a good time? Trevor asked, smirking at me in a way that made my skin crawl. Lovely, I said, keeping my voice pleasant. Olivia needed some things for school. I waited until midnight. Then, wearing my bedroom slippers so I wouldn't make noise on the hardwood floors, I crept downstairs to Trevor's office. The door was unlocked, a sign of his arrogance, his certainty that I was too old and too trusting to snoop. The file cabinet was locked, but Gerald had taught me to pick simple locks years ago, a skill from his days as a maintenance supervisor. My hands shook, but I managed it. Inside, I found a folder labeled Property Transfer. My property transfer. The documents showed that Trevor had been preparing to transfer my house deed into his and Courtney's names. There was a quitclaim deed with my signature, a signature I'd never written. There was a power of attorney document also forged. There were printouts of my bank accounts, including one I'd thought was secret, the one with $240,000 that Gerald and I had been saving for my final years. They were planning to take everything. I took photos of every page with my phone, my hands steady now with cold fury. Then I carefully returned everything to its place and went back upstairs. In my bedroom, I opened the WhatsApp group chat with the Silver survivors. They're trying to steal my house, I typed. I have proof. The responses came immediately, even at 1 a.m. Linda, send the photos to your lawyer first thing tomorrow. Ruth, get copies of everything to a safe location, not your house. Diane, it's time to act, Eleanor, before they move on this. Barbara, we're with you, whatever you need. The next morning I sent everything to Patricia Valdez. By that afternoon I was in her office again. This is more serious than I thought, Patricia said, spreading the photos across her desk. This isn't just financial exploitation. They're attempting to commit deed fraud. Mrs. Walsh, I need to ask you something important. What do you want to do? I thought about Courtney as a little girl, the way she used to help me bake cookies, the way she'd cried at her father's funeral. I thought about all the years I'd supported her, loved her, sacrificed for her. Then I thought about her words. Every month you keep breathing is money that should be ours. I want to protect myself, I said firmly, and I want them out of my house. Good. Patricia pulled out a legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. Over the next 3 weeks, I became a woman on a mission. Every morning I went on my walk, but instead of just exercising, I was meeting with lawyers, bankers, and real estate professionals. I was documenting every expense, every conversation, every piece of evidence. I opened a new bank account at a different bank and transferred most of my money there. I changed my passwords on everything. I met with my financial advisor and moved my investments to accounts that Courtney and Trevor couldn't access. I contacted the credit card companies about the fraud and filed police reports. I placed fraud alerts on my credit. I changed the locks on my bedroom door, and I rewrote my will. The new will was very different from the old one. The old will had left everything to Courtney. The house, my savings, Gerald's life insurance, my jewelry, everything. It was what a mother does, what I'd always planned. The new will left Courtney exactly $1. The house would go to Olivia in a trust, accessible when she turned 25. Until then, it would be managed by Patricia Valdez, with strict instructions that Courtney and Trevor could never live there or sell it. My savings would be split between Olivia's trust and several charities. the local food bank where I'd volunteered for years, the library where I'd taken Courtney as a child, the animal shelter where Gerald and I had adopted our dogs. My jewelry, what was left of it, would go to Olivia. And my Gerald's life insurance policy, the $500,000 that Courtney had been counting on, that would fund a scholarship for first-generation college students at the community college where I'd gotten my degree back in 1969. "Are you sure about this?" Patricia asked when we finalized the documents. "This is irrevocable." I thought about Courtney's face when she'd rearranged my furniture without asking, about Trevor's smirk when he charged his golf membership to my credit card, about the forged signatures on documents that would have left me homeless. "I'm sure," I said. But I wasn't ready to show my hand yet. I needed one more piece of evidence, one more clear demonstration of their intentions. I needed them to reveal themselves completely, to say out loud what they really thought of me. So I did something I'd never done before. I baited them. That Sunday morning, I got up early and cooked the most elaborate meal I'd made in months. Roast chicken, Gerald's favorite, mashed potatoes, green beans from my garden, apple pie from scratch. I set the table with my best china and silverware. Then I called Courtney downstairs. "I wanted to have a family dinner," I said. "I know things have been tense, and I thought we could talk about the future." I watched her eyes light up. She thought I was giving in, surrendering. She thought I was going to hand over my house, my money, my life. "That's a great idea, Mom," she said sweetly. "Trevor and I have been wanting to talk to you too." During dinner, I made sure to seem frail, confused, elderly. I dropped my fork. I asked Trevor to repeat something he'd said. I mentioned how tired I'd been lately, how hard it was to keep up with the house. "You know," Trevor said, exchanging a look with Courtney, "Eleanor, we've been thinking. You shouldn't be doing all this work anymore. Cooking, cleaning, maintaining this big house. It's too much for someone your age." "We think," Courtney added, reaching across the table to pat my hand in a gesture that felt rehearsed, "that you should consider moving into a care facility. Somewhere nice where they'd take care of you. Then Trevor and I could manage the house. For your benefit, of course." "For my benefit," I repeated softly. "Exactly." Trevor was warming to his subject now, his voice taking on a patronizing tone. "You've earned your rest, Eleanor. Let us handle the burden of this property. In fact, we've been looking at some facilities, and there's a really nice one about 30 miles from here. We could visit you on weekends." 30 miles, I said. "Well, we'd be busy managing your estate," Courtney said. "But we'd make time. Family is important." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. This stranger who wore my daughter's face but spoke like a con artist. And something inside me finally, completely, broke free. "No," I said clearly. "What?" Courtney blinked. "I said no. I'm not going into a home. I'm not signing over my house. I'm not doing any of what you're asking." Trevor's face darkened. "Eleanor, I don't think you understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly." I stood up, my voice growing stronger. "I understand that you've been stealing from me. I understand that you forged my signature on legal documents. I understand that you've been using my credit, running up bills, planning to take everything I have. I understand all of it." "You're being ridiculous," Courtney snapped, standing as well. "We've been helping you. You're just too old and confused to see it." "I'm not confused, I'm not senile, and I'm not your meal ticket." That's when Courtney's face twisted into something ugly, something I'd never seen before. "You ungrateful bitch," she hissed. "After everything we've done for you, living in this depressing house, putting up with your endless stories about Dad, pretending to care about your boring life, you should be thanking us for even being here." "Thanking you?" I felt a laugh bubble up from somewhere deep inside me. "Thanking you for stealing my jewelry? For forging my signature? For planning to make me homeless? This is ridiculous," Trevor said, pulling out his phone. "Courtney, call Dr. Morrison. Your mother is clearly having a breakdown. We need to have her evaluated." "Don't you dare," I said, my voice like steel. "I know what you're trying to do. Declare me incompetent so you can take power of attorney. But I'm 3 steps ahead of you, Trevor." His face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "I found your files. The forged deed. The fake power of attorney. I know about the credit cards, the car lease, every penny you've stolen. And I have copies of everything." Courtney's face went from red to white. You went through our private papers?" "Your private papers? They were documents with my name on them, forged with my signature, planning to steal my property." "This is your fault," Courtney shouted. "You're selfish. Sitting on all this money, this house while we're struggling. Dad would have wanted us to have it. Your father would be ashamed of you." The words came out quietly, but they landed like a bomb. Courtney's face crumpled for just a moment, and I saw a flash of the daughter I'd raised. Then it was gone, replaced by cold fury. "Get out," she said. "This is my house. I don't care. You're not family anymore, Mother. Get out." And there it was, the moment I'd been waiting for, the words I needed to hear. I looked at my daughter, at Trevor's satisfied smirk, at Olivia's horrified face peeking around the doorway. That's when I said it. "You're right about one thing, Courtney. This conversation is over." The next morning, I was up at dawn. I'd barely slept, my mind racing with everything that was about to happen. I made coffee with steady hands and sat at my kitchen table. No, I wouldn't let them chase me out of my own kitchen. And waited. At precisely 9 a.m., my phone rang. Patricia Valdez. "Mrs. Walsh, I'm at the courthouse now. I'm filing the restraining order and the eviction notice. I'm also filing the police report for identity theft, forgery, and financial exploitation of an elderly person. Are you ready for this?" "I'm ready." "Good. The sheriff will be at your house by noon to serve the papers. I need you to stay in your room until then. Can you do that?" "I can do that." At 10 a.m., there was pounding on my bedroom door. "Mother, open this door." Courtney's voice was shrill, panicked. "We need to talk." I didn't answer. I sat in Gerald's old chair, the one I'd moved back into my room the night before, and I waited. The pounding continued. "Mom, please, let's just talk about this. I'm sorry about what I said last night. I didn't mean it." Too late, I thought. Years too late. At 11:45 a.m., I heard a car pull up outside. Heavy footsteps on the porch, the doorbell. Courtney's voice, "Can I help you?" A man's voice, official and firm. "I'm looking for Courtney Walsh Sterling and Trevor Sterling. I have papers to serve." "Papers? What papers?" I heard the rustle of documents being handed over, then silence. Then, "What the fuck? Trevor! Trevor!" I finally opened my bedroom door and walked downstairs. A sheriff's deputy stood in my hallway, along with Patricia Valdez and another woman I recognized from the Silver Survivors group. Linda, who'd been through this before and had offered to be there for support. Courtney's face was blotchy red, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Mom, please, this is a mistake. You can't do this." "I can and I have," I said calmly. "You have 30 days to vacate my property. All charges against you have been filed with the police. If you attempt to contact me during that time, you'll be in violation of the restraining order." "But where will we go? What about Olivia?" "You should have thought about that before you tried to steal my house." Trevor tried to push past the deputy. "You crazy old bitch." "Mr. Sterling," the deputy said sharply, "I'd advise you not to make threats in front of law enforcement." Trevor's face was purple with rage, but he stepped back. "Additionally," Patricia said, pulling out another set of documents, "I'm serving you both with a civil lawsuit for the $73,000 you've stolen from Mrs. Walsh over the past 2 months. We have full documentation of every fraudulent expense, every forged signature, every stolen item. You can expect to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." "You can't prove any of that," Courtney screamed. "Actually," I said quietly, "I can. I have copies of everything. Credit card, statements, photos of the forged documents, a detailed ledger of every expense, receipts, even recordings of some of our conversations." This last part was a bluff. But they didn't know that. And I have witnesses. People you never even knew I was talking to. I watched the realization dawn on their faces. They'd underestimated me completely. They'd seen a lonely old widow and thought she'd be easy prey. They'd been so very wrong. "Mom, please," Courtney tried one more time, her voice breaking. "I'm your daughter, don't do this, I'll pay you back. We'll move out. Just don't press charges." I looked at her for a long moment. I thought about all the years I'd loved her, raised her, sacrificed for her. I thought about the little girl who'd held my hand on her first day of school. Then I thought about her words. "Every month you keep breathing is money that should be ours." "You made your choice, Courtney. Now you live with the consequences." "What about Olivia?" she whispered. "What about your granddaughter?" "Olivia will be fine. I've set up a trust fund for her education and her future. When she turns 18, she'll have my phone number and the ability to contact me if she chooses. Until then, you'll make sure she knows I love her." "You vindictive—" "Ma'am," the deputy interrupted, "I think it's time for you to start packing." They left that day. Not all the way. They stayed in a hotel while they scrambled to find somewhere else to live. But they were out of my house, and every day I woke up in my own home, my own space, without their presence poisoning the air. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings. Patricia was brilliant, ruthless in her pursuit of justice. The police charged Trevor with identity theft, forgery, and financial exploitation. Courtney was charged as an accessory. Their assets were frozen pending the outcome of the civil suit. The Silver survivors rallied around me. Barbara brought me meals. Linda came over to help me change the locks and install a security system. Ruth helped me organize all my financial documents. Diane simply sat with me on the days when the weight of it all felt too heavy, when I mourned the daughter I'd lost, even as I stood firm in the decisions I'd made. The story made the local news. Local woman, 73, fights back against financial exploitation by family members. I did one interview at Patricia's suggestion. "Why did you decide to come forward?" the reporter asked. "Because I want other elderly people to know they don't have to be victims," I said. "Our children don't have the right to our money, our property, or our dignity just because we're old. We built these lives. We earned these assets. And we deserve to be treated with respect." The interview went viral. I started getting letters from other elderly people sharing their own stories. Some were worse than mine. Some were preparing to take action. All of them thanked me for speaking up. 3 months after that terrible Sunday dinner, I stood in court as the judge read the verdict in the civil case. Trevor and Courtney were ordered to pay me back the full $73,000, plus damages, plus my legal fees. Total, $127,000. "Will they actually pay?" I asked Patricia afterward. "They'll pay, or they'll face criminal consequences. Trevor's already negotiating a plea deal on the identity theft charges. They can't afford more legal trouble." As for Courtney, I saw her once more, about 6 months after everything happened. I was in the grocery store picking out tomatoes when I heard her voice. "Mom," I turned. She looked older, thinner, there were dark circles under her eyes. "Courtney, I just wanted you to know, we lost the house. Trevor's working at a call center. Olivia had to switch to public school." She said it like it was my fault, like I should feel guilty. "I'm sorry you made such poor choices," I said evenly. "I can't believe you did this to us, to your own daughter." I set down my tomatoes and looked her straight in the eye. "I didn't do this to you, Courtney. You did this to yourself. You chose greed over love. You chose Trevor over me. You chose to see your own mother as nothing more than a bank account waiting to be emptied. That's not—" "Let me finish. I would have given you almost anything if you'd just asked. If you'd treated me with respect. If you'd been honest about your struggles instead of trying to steal from me. But you didn't do any of those things. You saw a weak old woman you could manipulate, and you were wrong." "So what now?" Her voice was bitter. "You've taken everything from us." "No, I've taken back what was mine. There's a difference." I picked up my tomatoes again. "And Courtney? When Olivia turns 18, I'm going to reach out to her. I'm going to make sure she knows she has a grandmother who loves her and who set up a trust fund for her future. I'm going to make sure she knows the truth about what happened. You can tell her whatever story you want until then, but eventually she'll know. Courtney's face crumpled. You can't do that. Watch me. I walked away and didn't look back. That was 18 months ago. I'm 74 now, still living in my house, still taking my morning walks, still meeting with the Silver survivors every week. Our WhatsApp group has expanded. We're now helping other elderly people protect themselves from financial exploitation. We call it the Silver Survivors Network, and we've helped dozens of people. I've started volunteering at the senior center, teaching other elderly people about financial literacy, about recognizing the signs of exploitation, about standing up for themselves. Patricia Valdez joins me sometimes, offering legal advice. My house is quiet now, but it's my own. I've redecorated it the way I want it. Gerald's chair is back in the living room. My jewelry box is empty of the pieces Courtney took, but I've replaced them with new items that I chose myself. Every morning I wake up in my own home, on my own terms. Courtney sends letters occasionally. They're always the same. Apologies mixed with blame, requests for reconciliation mixed with resentment. I don't respond. The trust fund for Olivia is secure. My will is updated and legally bulletproof. My finances are protected. I heard through mutual friends that Trevor and Courtney eventually divorced. He blamed her for the legal troubles. She blamed him for the initial idea. Neither of them took responsibility for their own actions. Olivia is living with Courtney now, in a small apartment across town. She's 16, doing well in school despite everything. I think about her often. I wonder if Courtney tells her the truth or if I'm portrayed as the villain in this story. But in 2 years, Olivia will be 18. In 2 years, she can make her own choices about who she wants in her life. And if she chooses to reach out, I'll be here. The Silver survivors threw me a birthday party last month. Barbara baked a cake. Linda brought champagne. Ruth gave me a photo album filled with pictures of all of us at various meetings and events. Diane gave me a plaque that said, "Strong women don't have attitudes. They have standards." To Eleanor, Barbara said, raising her glass, who taught us all that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. We clinked glasses and I looked around at these women, my real family, the one I'd chosen and who'd chosen me back. Women who understood that aging doesn't mean accepting abuse, women who'd been through their own battles and come out stronger. Thank you, I said, my voice thick with emotion. All of you, for showing me I wasn't alone. Never alone, Linda said firmly. That's the point. They count on us being isolated, being too ashamed to speak up, but together we're unstoppable. Sometimes late at night, I still think about Courtney. I wonder what went wrong, where I failed as a mother. But then I remember. I didn't fail. I loved her completely, raised her well, gave her every opportunity. Her choices were her own, her greed was her own, her cruelty was her own. And my strength, my ability to stand up for myself, to protect what I'd built, to refuse to be a victim, that was my own too. I sleep well at night now. My house is secure, my finances are protected, my will is clear and unambiguous. When I'm gone, Olivia will inherit a house and a trust fund that will set her up for life. She'll also inherit the story of what happened, told in my own words in a letter that Patricia will give her on her 25th birthday. In that letter, I tell her that I loved her mother. I tell her that I love her. And I tell her the truth about what happened so she can make informed decisions about the adults in her life. Some people think I was too harsh. Some think I should have forgiven Courtney, should have given her another chance. They say family is family, that blood is thicker than water, but the full quote is, "The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb." The bonds we choose are stronger than the ones we're born with. And I choose to surround myself with people who treat me with respect, with dignity, with love. I choose myself. Would you have forgiven them? Or would you have stood your ground like I did? Sometimes I wonder if younger people understand what it's like to be treated as invisible in your own family, to be seen as nothing more than an obstacle between your children and their inheritance. Sometimes I wonder if they realize that we're still here, still sharp, still capable of fighting back. Because here's what I've learned in these 74 years. You teach people how to treat you. And if you accept disrespect, you'll get more of it. But if you stand up, even when your knees shake, even when your heart breaks, even when it means losing people you love, sometimes especially when it means losing people you love, you teach the world that you still matter. I still matter. And every single day I wake up in my house, surrounded by my chosen family, living on my own terms, is proof of that.